Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Shrunvatam Svakalaha Krishnaha Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Kuryanta Stoya Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhursatam Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Today I'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 22, verse 30 and 31. Indriyar Vishayar Krishtair Akshiptam Chayatam Manaha Chetanam Harate Buddhe Stambastoyam Iva Hrudat. Synonyms: Indriyaha, by the senses; Vishaya, the sense objects; Akristai, Akristaihi, being attracted; Akshiptam, agitated; Jayatam, always thinking of; Manaha, mind; Chetanam, consciousness; Harate, becomes lost; Buddhe, of intelligence; Samaha, big straws; Toyam, water; Iva, like; Hrudat, from the lake. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When one's mind and senses are attracted to sense objects for enjoyment, the mind becomes agitated. As a result of continually thinking of sense objects, one's real consciousness almost becomes lost, like the water in a lake that is gradually sucked up by the big grass straws on its bank. Purport. In its very words, it is very nicely explained how our original Krishna consciousness becomes polluted and we gradually become almost completely forgetful of our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the previous verse, it is recommended that we should always keep in touch with the devotional service of the Lord so that the blazing fire of devotional service can gradually burn into ashes, material desires, and we can become liberated from the repetition of birth and death. This is also how we can indirectly keep our staunch faith in the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the mind is allowed to think of sense gratification continuously, it becomes the cause of material bondage. If our mind is simply filled with sense gratification, even though we want Krishna consciousness, by continuous practice, we cannot forget the subject matter of sense gratification. If one takes up the sannyas order of life, but is not able to control the mind, he will think of objects of sense gratification, namely family, society, expensive home, etc. Even though he goes out to the Himalayas or the forest, his mind will continue to thinking of objects of sense gratification. In this way, gradually one loses his original taste for Krishna consciousness. The example given here is very appropriate. If a big lake is covered by all around long kusa grass, just like columns, the waters dry up. Similarly, when big columns of material desire increase, the clear water of consciousness is dried up. Therefore, these columns of kusa grass should be cut or thrown away from the beginning. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed that even if from the very beginning we did not take care of unwanted grass in the paddy field, the fertilizing agents or water will be used by them and the paddy plants will dry up. The material desire for sense enjoyment is the cause of our fall down in this material world. And thus, we suffer the threefold miseries and continuous birth and death, old age, and disease. However, if we turn our desires towards the transcendental loving service of the Lord, our desires become purified. We cannot kill desires, we have to purify them of different designations. If you constantly think of being a member of a particular nation, society, or family, and continuously think about them, we become very strongly entangled in the conditional life of birth and death. But if our desires are applied to the service of the Lord, they become purified, and thus we become immediately freed from material contamination. Text 31. Vrisyati anmasati shirtam jnana brahmasa smriti kshaye tadrodam kavyah prahur atma pavunam atmanaha atma, atma pavanam atmanaha. Vrasyati becomes destroyed. Anusmriti, constantly thinking. Chittam, consciousness. Jnana Brahmasaha, benefit of real knowledge. Smritiksaye, by destruction of remembrance. Tatrodam, talking that process. Kavyaha, great learned scholars. Prahuhu, have opined. Atma, of the soul. Apa, apava, apahana, above Navam, destruction, Atmanaha of the soul. When one deviates from his original consciousness, he loses the capacity to remember his previous position or recognize his present one. When remembrance is lost, all knowledge acquired is based on a false foundation. When this occurs, learned scholars consider that the soul is lost. Purport: the living entity or the soul is ever existing and eternal. It cannot be lost. But learned scholars say that it's lost when actual knowledge is not working. There's a difference between animals and human beings. According to less intelligent philosophers, animals have no soul. But factually, animals have souls. Due to animals' gross ignorance, however, it appears that they have lost their souls. Without the soul, a body cannot move. There's a difference between a living body and a dead body. When the soul is out of the body is called dead. The soul is said to be lost when there is no proper knowledge exhibited. Our original consciousness is Krishna consciousness because we are part and parcel of Krishna. When his consciousness is misguided and one is put into the material atmosphere, which pollutes the original consciousness, one thinks that he is a product of the material elements. Thus, one loses his real remembrance of his position and as part and parcel of the supreme percent of Godhead. Just as a man who sleeps forgets himself. In this way, when activities of proper consciousness are checked, all the activities of the lost soul are performed on a false basis. At the present moment, human civilization is acting on a false platform of bodily identification. Therefore, it can be said that the people of the present age have lost their souls. And in this respect, they are no better than animals. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamniti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pashate Shatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrunda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I would like to seek blessings from all the assembled Vaishnavas and thank you for giving me an opportunity to purify myself. I request please forgive me for any shortcoming or adding my own interpretation. I obtained this purport of listening to through teachings of senior acharyas from ISKCON. I just want to summarize this in probably three steps. First, taking birth in next life while in Krishna consciousness, and again, transcendental teachings of Prahlad Maharaj by Srila Prabhupada. The speaker here reminds us of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, and a glimpse of slokas 7 to 9. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragment parts. Due to the conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with six senses, which includes the mind. The living entity in the material world carries its different conceptions from one body to another as the air carries aromas. Thus, he takes one kind of a body and again quits to take another. The living entity, or in other words, the living entity adulterates his consciousness with the qualities of cats and dogs in his next life. He gets a cat or dog body and enjoys consciousness and enjoys. Consciousness is originally pure like water, but if we mix water with a certain color, it changes. Similarly, consciousness is pure for the spirit, soul is pure. But consciousness is changed according to the association of the material qualities. Real consciousness is Krishna consciousness. When therefore one is situated in Krishna consciousness, he is pure in life. He does not necessarily get but if his consciousness is adulterated by some type of material mentality, in the next life he gets a corresponding body. He does not necessarily get a human body again. He can get the body of a cat, dog, hog, demigod, or any one of the forms, but there are 8.4 million species. A classic example is we already saw in the past about King Bharata, who got attracted to a deer during his last days of life, took birth as a deer. Since he knew his past life, he was roaming around the place where the sages were there and regained his consciousness. And in his third birth, he took again a human form. The common tension, what we can see here is that he knew the past life and was able to transform himself with the devotion. To To summarize a quick glimpse, if a soul cultivates consciousness centered on Krishna, it will be transferred to Krishna Loka, the spiritual world, and associated with Krishna. Conversely, if a soul consciousness is adulterated with the material qualities, it will take on a body in the next life corresponding to that consciousness. The nature of next body is determined by the soul's desires and attachment at the time of death, which is what I can say that Prabhupada reminds in one of the chapter to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra during the last days of life. So, in summary, what we can see here is the soul's consciousness at the time of death dictates the type of body it will take in the next life. A Krishna conscious soul again attains Krishna's abode, while a soul with material attachment may take a body in material world, potentially a lower species of life. Now, moving on to the second point, this is about the Prahlad Maharaj teachings by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. What is this emphasizes is on the importance of devotional service to the Supreme Lord as a path to as a path to spiritual liberation and perfection. He stresses that human life is a rare opportunity to understand and engage with God rather than engage being wasted on sense gratification and material pursuits. Prahlad Maharaj's teachings highlight the futility of seeking happiness through material means and the importance of focusing on spiritual advancement. Let's look at some of the key points that Prahlad Maharaj has provided. He said, Prahlad Maharaj emphasizes that God is the most beloved and ultimate object of devotion. He points out that human beings often spend their lives pursuing sense gratification and material desires and neglecting their spiritual potential and opportunity to serve the Lord. He also highlights how families' ties and obligations can become a source of attachment, hindering spiritual progress and keeping individual bound to the material world. Prahlad Maharaj teachings also promote Krishna consciousness, a state of devotion and awareness of God, as a path to spiritual perfection and liberation. He emphasizes that the omnipresence of God and the importance of seeing Him in all things, promoting a deeper understanding of the divine. The unwavering love for Krishna serves as an example of pure devotion and powerful message about the importance of spiritual connection. Last but not the least, Prahlad Maharaj emphasizes the necessity of engaging in devotional service to the Lord under the guidance of a spiritual master as the key to liberation and perfection. As we saw, as we heard about text 30, this refers to another sloka in Bhagavad Gita. Jayato Vishyan Pumsaha Sangas Te Supajate Sanga Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodo Vijayate. What is this? Is one who is not Krishna consciousness is subject to material desires whilst contemplating the object of senses. The sense requires real engagements, and if you're not engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they will certainly seek engagement in the service of materialism. In summary, what we can see is about a desire of a person. What we can see, it is natural. Because the Gita acknowledges that everyone has a desire and they're natural part of human existence. But they're misdirected desires causing suffering. It's not actually the suffering a human being takes. He getting redirected to those material attractions. The true liberation, when it comes, is from controlling desires and performing actions without attachment to the results. We have to focus on duty instead of obsessing over desires. Let's emphasize the importance of fulfilling one's own duty, the karma, diligently without attachment to the outcome. We should also surrender to the divine, the supreme presence of Godhead, and letting go of attachment to the fruits of actions, which leads to peace and liberation. The pitfall is here one who is attached to the sense objects, and it leads to desire. That desire leads to anger, which can also lead to further suffering. So what we can do is instead of we getting ourselves attached to material desires, let's also attract ourselves by performing desires on the spiritual practices like bhakti yoga, devotion, and also the chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. It also emphasizes the importance of equanimity or remaining balanced and detached from the outcome of actions. Whether it's a positive or negative. What we can do is by controlling our senses, desires, and focusing on duty on the devotion, bhakti yoga, we can transcend the cycle of birth and death and attain liberation, which is the moksha. Just to contemplate what I just mentioned, it's also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, sloka 50. Buddhi yukto chahatiha ube suktra duskrute tasmad yogya yujyasva yoga karmoso kausalam. What it says is a man engaged in a devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions in his life. Therefore, he strives for yoga, which is the art of all work. Similarly, we can also see about in the Bhagavad Gita again, chapter 3, text 43. Here, what he explains is even the mighty armed Arjuna should steady his mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, and thus by the spiritual strength conquer this insubstitutable by conquer his enemy that he's seeing on the battleground. The major problem what we see here is the problem is what we think is feel that we are this body, the body is mind. It's just an illusion. But what are we is actually the soul, which occupies a temporary dress due to ignorance, which we cannot estimate the seriousness of the topic. So one must need to stabilize his intelligence by fully concentrate on Supreme. One should live in secluded place or in association of devotees and detach from all temporary material activities. Thus, with regular practice and time, one can gain control over senses. Let me end this purport with a simple example. There used to be a devotee named Madhu who was very eager to learn devotional service. He approached Guru and said, "How can I become very close to Supreme Lord?" The interesting fact is the Guru knows about Madhu's defect. Madhu is a devotee here. And he knows with his anger he cannot progress in his spiritual journey. So what the Guru decided, okay, let me test him first and see whether he can control his anger, which is what we've been hearing. So he said, Guru said, Madhu, chant Lord's name daily during all your activities for a month, take the bath and come back see me. Madhu, since he approached the Guru, he said, okay, let me hear Guru's words. He went ahead, started chanting. After a month, he took bath and he started coming towards the ashram where the Guru is there. On the way, there's a sweeper who's sweeping the roads, cleaning the roads, accidentally throws the dust on Madhu's body, basically the dust. Madhu gets angry and says how much time it took to get to this place and why he destroyed it. He cursed the sweeper and again he left. Second month passed. After end of second month, Madhu again came back to see Guru. The same incident happens again. This time again Madhu gets angry. Now, all this happens because when Madhu, after getting angry on sweeper, goes to see Guru, Guru says, no, you go and come back. Looks like you're not ready yet. Third time, the third month came where he again chanted the Lord's name every day. And then at the end of the third month, he took bath and he started coming. So here, what we see is the sweeper who got angry for 2 times by Madhu's yelling. This time he said, okay, let me do it the way it's needed. What Madhu said, Madhu did not become angry or not furious. What he said, okay, so be it. And then and then he said, thank you for teaching me a lesson. I think I should leave my anger and then concentrate on my devotion towards the Supreme Person of Godhead. Madhu went back, took bath, came back and saw Guru. And then this time, uh, Madhu then followed said, Guru, you're my master. You taught me how to overcome my anger. I learned from my lesson. And then that's where Madhu was able to achieve his control over angerness and devotion towards the supreme result of Godhead. This just not Madhu is just a character here. Even we in our life we see a lot of situations coming and we become angry or we become over angry and then we start to blaspheme. Let's see the situation and then see let's how we can get it pacified. Interesting fact is Madhu, even though he was anger on the sweeper, but he saw his master in the sweeper again, who's teaching him a lesson to control anger. It was in fact not the intent of sweeper to make Madhu clothes dirty. What we see is this anger is again a contagious and a bad habit. What was sweeper doing? He's doing just his job without any intending of offending Madhu. So let's what Madhu realized his mistakes after cursing this people. But no, he said, let's not do that. So let me end this purport. Thank you for giving me an opportunity and for purifying myself. Hare Krishna.